Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services virtual public meeting for the proposed critical habitat for 12 species and not prudent determination for 2 species. We're going to give folks just a few minutes here to join the meeting, and then we'll begin the PowerPoint presentation shortly, so please stay tuned. I do want to note that closed captioning is available by selecting the closed caption icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you are using the Zoom web portal or Zoom app on your computer. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everyone to today's meeting. My name is Ali Yamnitsky, and I am with Environmental Management and Planning Solutions Incorporated, a contractor for the service. I'm going to be one of your meeting facilitators today. We're going to go ahead and get our meeting started. And again, I do want to note that closed captioning is available by selecting the closed caption icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you are using the Zoom web portal or Zoom app on your computer. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Leisha to introduce herself.
Yes, thank you, Ali. Aloha mai kako. My name is Leisha Lynn Salbosa. I am the Listing and Classification Program Manager in the Pacific Islands Fish and Wildlife Office. Thank you all for being here. Before we begin, I'd like to offer an oli or chant to open the space for us tonight. Ualu kini kini ka hua o hi ale hua mai o a lono nuia kea. Hali hali ia ke e hulu makani. Hi poi a ki poli mahana o kane hoa o ho nua mea. Ua mole. Ua mo hala ela, o ka apapane, o ka mamo, o ka nuku iwi, o ka ahihi. Mai hiki lalo ai, hiki luna e waiho nei hali I mokula. Ua I ke ai, a he leo noi. Mahalo. Mahalo. Thank you for being here again. Just a couple of logistics. I'd like to call everyone's attention to the service's proposed critical habitat project page listed on the previous slide at the bottom of that slide. Ali, could you go back to that first slide?
Sure, yeah, we can go back one.
Thanks. Tonight's presentation and recording will be found at this address. We'll add this address to the Zoom chat as well. Thank you so much, Ali. Would you like to start us off?
Definitely. Thank you, Leisha. We appreciate everyone's time and participation. Tonight's meeting is being hosted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, otherwise known as the Service. We have several members of the service with us here tonight who will be answering your questions and listening to your public comments, including members of their management team. We do have the expected agenda on screen for tonight's meeting now. We'll go over meeting ground rules, then have an informational presentation, which should last approximately 45 minutes. We'll then have a 15-minute question and answer session, followed by a 60-minute public comment session. The meeting will then end at 8 p.m. Hawaii time. All right, and so we've already heard from Leisha, so I'm now going to turn it over to Jody Bush to introduce the other members of the services team.
Hello, and thank you so much for being here this evening. My name is Jody Bush. I'm the Deputy Assistant Regional Director for our region, the Pacific region in the Northwest. And I want to thank everybody on the team for all their hard work during this process. And I'm going to introduce folks. So You've met Leisha. She is the team lead. And I'm going to go ahead and name the rest of the team here. You can follow along on the slide. We have Carly Eakin, our Species Assessment Team Project Manager. We have Chelsea Javersalis and Stephanie Joe, who are biologists on the team, and Jordan Akiyama, who's our Public Affairs Specialist. Again, thank you for being here today. And back to you, Allie.
Great, thanks, Jody. All right, if we can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. Before we get started with tonight's presentation, I wanted to review some ground rules for tonight's meeting. So first, this meeting is being recorded as part of the project record, and a recording will be posted to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's website. Second, your microphones and videos will be turned off for the duration of the meeting today. You will only be unmuted if and when I unmute you during the question and answer session if you are a phone caller, or during the verbal public comment portion of the meeting if you are commenting. Questions will be addressed during the question and answer session after the PowerPoint presentation. We will do our best to address the questions in the order they come in to allow everyone an opportunity to voice their questions. Instructions for how to submit questions electronically during the session will be provided after the services presentation. We will allow those joining by computer to submit questions electronically and those joining by phone to submit questions verbally, as they do not have access to the chat feature to submit questions electronically. We do ask that you keep any questions related to the scope of the presentation. After the question and answer session, we will then move on to the virtual public hearing portion of the meeting, during which we will accept verbal public comments from participants who have joined tonight's meeting. If you registered before the start time of tonight's meeting and indicated that you wanted to offer a verbal public comment today, you are on our list of pre-registered commenters and will be called on during the public comment portion. If you registered after the meeting started, we will do our best to reserve time for you to have an opportunity to offer your verbal public comment. If we have time remaining after we have gone through our list of pre-registered commenters, we will have the verbal public comment portion of the meeting open to anyone who would like to offer a verbal public comment today who has not already done so, regardless of whether you selected yes or no to commenting when you registered for the meeting. If you do not get the opportunity to offer your verbal public comment today, written comments can be submitted electronically at regulations.gov or via hard copy. Both the website and the mailing addresses will be given during today's presentation and are also available in the chat now. The comment period will be open through May 30th, 2023, and later on in the presentation, we'll provide further information on how to submit those written public comments. All right, and so finally, if you do experience any technical issues with Zoom, please go ahead and use that chat box to message to host and panelists, and a member of our team will reach out to you. All right, and at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Leisha, and she's going to lead us through the Fish and Wildlife Services PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you so much, Ali. For those of you just joining us tonight, I am the Listing and Classification Program Team Manager for the Pacific Islands Fish and Wildlife Office. This evening, I will provide an overview. Next slide, please. This evening, I will provide an overview of our proposed critical habitat rule for 14 Hawaii Island species. I'd like to focus our attention on 3 aspects. We are proposing critical habitat for 12 federally endangered species on Hawaii Island. We are making a determination that critical habitat is not prudent for a species of ʻopāe shrimp or ankline pool shrimp and a species of loulu palm. And finally, we are seeking comments on this proposal. I'll start by providing an overview of the affected species. We'll learn about critical habitat, explain what we mean by not prudent determination. Then I'll get into our critical habitat process and introduce a few key terms. Then I'll provide an overview of our proposed areas and review the areas that we are considering to exclude. We will conclude with a summary and review the types of comments we are seeking. Let's begin with an overview of our species. We have a total of 14 species covered in the proposed rule. All were federally listed as endangered in 2013, meaning After a careful evaluation, it was found that these species are in danger of becoming extinct throughout all or a significant portion of their range. All of these species are found only on Hawaii Island.
Leisha, it looks like your sound has gone off. So we haven't been able to hear you on the endangered plant species side. Okay. I'm seeing in the chat that we have someone saying the audio is back on. I personally can't hear any of the audio. So maybe we'll just ask if you could double check your audio that you're connected to. You can do that. Someone said speaker audio, not host. I'm not sure what that means.
Am I coming in okay
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, now that's perfect.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry to
no
interrupt.
problem. Thank you so much. Let's continue, everyone. Cyania marxii, or haha, is a short-lived perennial palm-like shrub and is found on the west side of the island. Cyania trintomantha, or aku, is a palm-like shrub distributed across the windward slopes of the island. And finally, Sertandra nanavaliensis, or haivale, is a shrub or small tree found in wet forest ecosystems. Sertandra wagneri, also called haivale, or Kanavao keokeo, is a shrub or small tree found in wet forest ecosystems. Melicope remii also has no known common name and is long-lived perennial shrub found on the windward slopes of the Kohala Mountains. Phallostigia floribunda is a perennial shrub found in mesic and wet forest ecosystems. Pittosporum hawaiiense, or ho'ava, is a small tree found in mesic and wet ecosystems on the island. Pritchardia lanigera, or loulu, is a medium-sized palm tree known from the Kohala Mountains and Hamakua district. Shidea diffusa, subspecies macari, is a perennial climbing herb found in wet forest ecosystems. Shidea hawaiiensis, or ma'oli'oli, is a perennial herb and at the time of listing occurs only at a single site in a dry forest habitat between Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea mountains. Stenagina cronralii has no common name and is a vine found in the Kohala Mountains in wet forest habitat. Finally, in our proposed rule, we have our two animal species. Drosophila digressa, or the Hawaiian picture wing fly, is found in mesic forest and wet forest ecosystems. Vetericaris chaceorum, or ʻopāe, is a small shrimp found in inland alkaline pools of mixed salinity. Before we get into our critical habitat process, I'd like to define critical habitat. Critical habitat is the specific geographic areas that are essential for the conservation and recovery of a threatened or endangered species. These areas may include breeding sites, feeding areas, migration routes, and other habitats necessary for the survival of the species. These areas have certain physical or biological features, such as soil type, climate, or the presence or absence of other species that interact with the listed species. And finally, critical habitat identifies whether these features may need special management or protection. What does critical habitat do? Critical habitat helps to guide cooperation within the federal government. Critical habitat requires a federal agency to consult with the service if their actions may destroy or modify designated critical habitat. And finally, critical habitat requires the service to gather more detailed information about a species, thereby increasing knowledge to share with federal agencies and other conservation partners, and in turn, increasing overall effectiveness to conserve the listed species. What does critical habitat not do? Critical habitat does not affect land ownership or allow the government to access, take, or manage private property. It does not create reserves or protected areas, and it does not prevent development. Why are we proposing critical habitat? As the Fish and Wildlife Service, we have a statutory obligation to address a species' critical habitat within a year of listing the species as threatened or endangered. In summary, how does critical habitat benefit our listed species? Critical habitat is a tool that supports the continued conservation of imperiled species. It raises awareness of the habitat needs of imperiled species and focuses efforts of our conservation partners. It identifies areas and informs landowners and the public which areas are important to species conservation and recovery. Switching gears now, before we propose critical habitat, we need to evaluate whether it is prudent or thoughtful to designate habitat for a species in the first place. Critical habitat is not prudent if it increases the degree of collection or other human impacts. It is not prudent if destruction or modification of a species' habitat is not a threat to the species itself. Critical habitat is also not prudent if there are no areas within U.S. jurisdiction that provide a conservation value, or if no area meets the definition of critical habitat. And finally, if the best available scientific and commercial data indicate it is not prudent. After evaluating our 14 species that we went over earlier in this presentation, and based on the best available scientific and commercial data, we found that designating critical habitat for Vetericaris, chaceorum, and Pritchardia, lanigera, may increase unauthorized collection and harm to these two species. Hawaiian alkaline shrimp species are popular in the aquarium trade due to the ability to live in hermetically sealed containers and as live feed for seahorses. While the shrimp that are being harvested are primarily Halocardina rubri, which is not endangered, because Vetericaris chaceorum shares similar appearance, habitat preferences, and is rare, this may result in either intentional or accidental collection of Vetericaris chaceorum. Pritchardia species, likewise, have become one of the most widely cultivated ornamental palm genera in the world. 12 of the 22 Hawaiian Pritchardia species are federally protected, meaning a permit is required to collect seed or plant material from wild populations. Our process for developing critical habitat is generally focused on 3 steps. I'll briefly review each step here. First, we examine data on where the species were found at the time of listing. In this case, the species were all listed in 2013. Second, we identify the physical or biological features essential within the proposed critical habitat boundaries. And third, we ensured a conservation strategy consistent with the species approved recovery plan. In step 1, we compiled species data from various sources, analyzed species range maps, and used other landscape features to refine the boundaries based on species occurrence data. In step 2, we described the essential physical or biological features within the proposed critical habitat boundary that are necessary to support the life history needs of each species. For example, physical or biological features may include sites for breeding, rearing offspring, or habitats representative of the ecological distribution of the species. In step 3, we ensured proposed critical habitat units were consistent with the species recovery criteria outlined in the draft recovery plan approved last fall. 10 of the 12 species are co-located or interconnected, meaning they rely on one another to survive. The physical or biological features were informed by the 6 different ecosystem types that one or more of the 12 species occur in and depend on. These 6 ecosystems are as listed here: coastal, dry forest, music forest, wet forest, music grassland and shrubland, and wet grassland and shrubland. The physical or biological features essential to the conservation of the 12 species identified in this proposed rule are those features required for the successful functioning of the ecosystem in which they depend on. While critical habitat is identified for each species individually, the conservation of each species depends, at least in part, on the successful functioning of the commonly shared ecosystem. Ecosystem features or attributes include elevation, substrate, and associated native plant genera. The physical or biological features for each species is described separately for each ecosystem in which they occur. Here's an example with the physical and biological features for Bidens hilibrandiana, subspecies hilibrandiana. Now, I'll briefly cover each of the 6 ecosystems and which of the 12 species depend on those ecosystems. Bidens hilibrandiana, subspecies hilibrandiana, is the only species of the 12 known to occupy the coastal ecosystem. Listed here are some of the physical and biological features for Bidens hilibrandiana, subspecies hilibrandiana. Shidea hawaiiensis is the only species of the 12 known to occupy the dry forest ecosystem. Listed here are some of the physical or biological features for Shidea hawaiiensis. The music forest ecosystem is an important habitat in Hawaii. Of our 12 species, Sirtandra nalivaliensis, Phallostegia floribunda, Pittosporum hawaiiense, and Drosophila digressa are all located within the music forest. The wet forest ecosystem is commonly thought of when referring to Hawaiian forests. Of our 12 species, the ecosystem provides essential habitat for Cyanea marxii, Cyanea tritomantha, Sirtandra nanavaliensis, Sirtandra wagneri, Phallostegia floribunda, Pittosporum hawaiiense, Melicope remii, Shidea diffusa, subspecies macari, and Stenogene cronrelia, as well as Drosophila digressa. Sirtandra nanavaliensis is the only species of the 12 known to occupy the mesic grassland and shrubland ecosystem. The mesic grassland and shrubland ecosystem is found throughout the main Hawaiian Islands with seasonally moderate levels of rainfall. The wet grassland and shrubland ecosystem receives seasonally higher levels of rainfall and contains a diverse array of native species. Of our 12 species, Cyanea tritomantha and Phallostegia floribunda are located here. After identifying the critical habitat areas and the physical or biological features, which we just covered, we then evaluate whether special management considerations and protections might be needed to conserve these areas. What we've identified are the following. These special management considerations are provided for informational conservation purposes. Critical habitat designation does not require these management actions, but they're important informational tools to landowners and federal agencies. Now I'll switch gears and talk about where these proposed critical habitat areas are located. Our proposed designation includes 20 distinct areas, pictured here as yellow polygons. The 20 distinct areas are comprised of 40 proposed critical habitat units, 9 identified for Drosophila digressa, the Hawaiian picture ring fly, and 31 proposed areas for a variety of plants. At the northern tip of the island, you will see a yellow arrow. The yellow arrow is to indicate a proposed unit along the coastline for Biden's Hillebrandiana, subspecies Hillebrandiana. The next few maps here provide a closer look at the proposed critical habitat units themselves. This map depicts the northern proposed critical habitat areas. The two units that are single species are identified on the map here, and those are for Biden's Hillebrandiana up at the top and Shadea hawaiiensis at the lower bottom on the left. Other polygon areas, other critical habitat unit areas are proposed for more than one of the 12 species. This map moves along East Hawaii. Again, these areas were generated based on the ecosystem requirements upon which one or more of the 12 species depend on. On this map, we have 7 plant distinct areas and 1 Drosophila digressa unit displayed. This is the final close-up showing the southern areas. When a species occurred in more than one ecosystem type, we included the full range of ecosystem types within that species range, consistent with the conservation strategy and recovery plan for that species. For example, Phallostegia floribunda has the widest range among the 12 species, meaning it's found among many different ecosystems. Phallostegia floribunda is known from 4 of the 6 ecosystem types. The only ecosystems Phallostegia floribunda is not known from is coastal and dry forest habitat. However, this species has declined dramatically since listing. Thus, these proposed areas for Phallostegia floribunda are warranted. For brevity, the previous maps were shared for general awareness. If you are wanting to better understand the exact locations of these proposed areas, there are 2 ways to review this information in better detail, as we understand it's a difficult scale to review. One way is to click on the regulations.gov site and examine each of the unit maps in the proposed rule. This link here is also located on the PIFRO project page, our project page, and the link was provided earlier in our Zoom chat. The second way is to review the supporting documents site in the enhanced content right-hand sidebar, pictured here with the blue arrow. At this link, you'll be able to download the actual geographic coordinates for all proposed critical habitat units. You'll then be able to generate digital maps using any mapping platform of your choice. Within the proposed critical habitat areas, we are considering excluding certain areas based on federal or non-federal conservation plans or agreements and their attendant partnerships. In all cases, we are considering excluding areas from the final designation where private landowners are actively participating in the restoration or management of habitats essential to conservation of these 12 species. We will work with landowners throughout this proposed rule's public comment period. Of the 40 proposed units, portions of 6 areas are being considered for exclusion, and I'll get into those shortly. In summary, this graph provides a breakdown of land ownership within the proposed designation. As you can see, about 6% falls within private lands, and this will likely be further reduced after we consider public comments on our considered exclusions. Here's a summary of our considered exclusions. Again, they total about 4,000 acres. This table is labeled as Table 7 within our proposed rule. I'd like to finish this presentation by reviewing the types of comments we are seeking. And in the next slide, I'll remind folks how to submit public comments. In particular, we are looking for information regarding our prudency determinations for the loulu palm and ʻopāe shrimp. We are also seeking information on the 12 species and the locations of where we are proposing critical habitat. I encourage you to submit public comments on this proposal, and there are 3 ways that you can do so. The 3 ways are listed here on the screen. We do consider all public comments received, and it is important that we reach a collaborative and informed decision. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Ali to continue on with our Q&A session.
Great, thanks for that presentation, Leisha. So we are now going to begin our question and answer portion of this meeting. This Q&A will last approximately 15 minutes or so. And as a reminder, the intent of this session is to answer questions related to the affected species, general proposed critical habitat, or rulemaking process. We ask that you keep any questions related to the presentation, and we will do our best to answer questions in the order that they are received. I will first go over instructions for how to submit a question using the chat function if you are using the Zoom web platform or Zoom app. All right, so at this time, if you do have a question and you are using the Zoom web platform or a Zoom app, please go ahead and click on the chat icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you hover your mouse over the bottom of your Zoom screen, the chat icon should appear along that Zoom toolbar. You may need to exit your full screen view in Zoom to see this pop up. I've included a graphic on the screen of where you can find that chat icon. You can then type your question into the chat box and please send it to hosts and panelists. I will then read the question aloud for all participants to hear, and a U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff member will respond to your question aloud. We will try to answer your questions in the order that they are received. Please note that there may be a pause between asking your question and a staff member answering your question, as we are in this virtual space. If you are calling in through the phone and have a question, please press *9 to raise your hand to let staff know that you have a question. When it is your turn, I will identify you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. I will then unmute you so you may ask your question. Again, a U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff member will then respond to your question aloud. You may be muted on your end, and if that's the case, we will prompt you to unmute yourself by pressing *6. All right, and it looks like we're getting a few questions in through the chat, so we're just going to take a moment here and gather our responses to those before we start providing those answers.
All right, thanks everyone for your patience. We're just working through a technical difficulty. We have some questions coming in the chat, and we'll read our first question shortly.
All right, so our first question of the evening is, what does this proposed rule do? And for the answer on that, we will go to Carly Eakin.
Thank you. So this rule proposes to designate approximately 122,277 acres as critical habitat for these 12 federally endangered species on the island of Hawaii. We are also making the determination that the designation of critical habitat is not prudent for 2 federally endangered species, a species of ʻopāe shrimp, or ancholine pool shrimp, and loulu palm on the island of Hawaii. In addition, in this proposed rule, we describe exclusions totaling 4,224 acres that we are considering making at the final rule stage based on those permitted and non-permitted conservation plans and agreements described earlier in the presentation. Hope that works for that. Thank you.
All right, and thanks for that answer, Carly. We'll move on to our next question, which is, what evidence in the record suggests that the utilization of the ʻopāe is a threat to the species? This was not noted as a threat in the final listing of this species, and existing documentation does not appear to support this. And for the answer on that, we'll go over to Leisha.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you for that question. Since 2013, since the species was listed, we did find a variety of additional information that leads us to make the determination that a risk to Vetericaris may be increased from overcollection due to the popularity of a similar species, Halocardinia. And so that is why we made that determination. And the supporting information and citations, I'll invite you to look into that in the proposed rule itself. Thank you so much for that question.
All right, and thanks for that answer, Leisha. I do want to note we have a couple more questions coming in through the chat, so we're just going to take a second here to gather the answers on that.
So we'll go ahead with our next question, which is, what evidence in the record suggests that overutilization of ʻopāe, I'll try my best on this one, Vetericaris chaceorum, is a threat to the species? This was not noted as a threat in the final listing of the species, and existing documentation does not appear to support this. And we'll go ahead and turn that over to Leisha.
Megan, so sorry. We actually just answered that question. I do have another question, though, ready to go. So we'll go ahead and move on and spare Leisha answering that a second time. Our next question is going to be, how does this critical habitat affect me? And for the answer on that, we'll go to Chelsea.
Critical habitat designations affect only federal agency actions or federally funded or permitted activities. Critical habitat designations do not affect activities by private landowners if there's no federal nexus, meaning no federal funding, permit, or license involved. Federal agencies work with the service to amend their projects, enabling it to proceed without adversely affecting critical habitat. Most federal projects are likely to go forward, but some may be modified to minimize harm. Critical habitat does not prevent all development or other activities that occur in a designated area. Critical habitat does not mandate government or public access to private lands and does not establish a refuge, wilderness reserve, preserve, or other special conservation area.
All right, thanks for that answer, Chelsea. Again, we do have some more questions coming in through the chat, so we do appreciate your patience with us as we develop those answers. All right, so our next question is going to be, apologies for the mispronunciation on this, Lanigera needs protection from rats, not human collectors. What is the approximate population? We'll go back to Chelsea for the answer on that.
Sure. Currently, there are 7 populations of loulu occurring in the Kohala Mountains, and there are 2 populations in the Ka'u region. That's all that are known to us.
All right, thanks for that answer, Chelsea. All right, we are getting a couple more questions in through that chat. So again, as we're in this virtual setting, we do appreciate your patience with us this evening. All right, our next question is, can areas be excluded from critical habitat? And for the answer on that, we'll go to Leisha.
Thanks, Ali. Yes, as we discussed, the areas may be excluded from critical habitat designation based on economic impact, the impact on national security, or any other relevant impact. If we determine that the benefits of excluding the area outweigh the benefits of including it, unless failure to designate the area as critical habitat may lead to extinction of a species. Thank you for that question.
All right, so we do have one additional question that's come in through the chat. This question is, and again, apologies for the mispronunciation on this. I thought the lanigera was also found in the Hamakua district. Is that correct? And we'll go to Chelsea for the answer on that.
Hi, yeah. So the loulu palm was historically found in the Kohala/Hamakua district, but currently we are unaware of any extant or known populations in the Hamakua district now. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chelsea. So like I said, that was the last question that we had received coming in through the chat. I do want to encourage folks to add in any other questions that they may have, since we do only have about 15 minutes here for this Q&A. So we'll just take a moment here to add any last questions in so we can provide those answers to you. All right, and just to the commenter or the author of the question for the lanigera seeds, we do want to encourage everyone here this evening to provide comments on any additional findings or information that you may have for the project, as that can help inform all pieces and processes that are involved. All right, again, I just wanted to do a quick last call for any remaining questions that folks may have that pertain to the presentation, this project, or the affected species. We do have a few more minutes here in this Q&A session before we'll go ahead and move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. All right, so we did get a question in the chat that we just may need a little bit of clarification or restating on to fully understand what the asker is looking for. But the question is, would not the two closely related, or sorry, resembled ʻopāe species overlap habitats, parenthetical ponds? So if you did ask that question, please go ahead and maybe rephrase that or let us know what your intention with that question was. All right, and looks like we got a little bit of clarification there in the chat. So we'll go ahead and go to Leisha for the answer on that question.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that question. If I understand the question, the answer is yes. The two species that are referred to as ʻopāe, Vetericaris and Pritchardia, they do overlap in habitats. And that is one of the concerns that we made and we identified in our prudency determination. Was that the question? I think so.
Yeah, if that doesn't answer your question, then please go ahead and ask another one in the chat. We do have one more question that we will be answering this evening before we go ahead and move on to that comment session. All right, so our final question for this evening, and again, apologies for any mispronunciations. This question is, please explain why Pu'u Ana Hulu, which is unoccupied habitat currently used for game management, is being used for the ma'oli'oli. This area is already experiencing take of listed species with no take coverage from the state through an HCP. And for the answer on that, we'll go to Leisha.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ali. Thank you for that question. Yes, the area that is proposed as critical habitat for Shadea hawaiiensis, we have identified existing physical and biological features that would be necessary for the conservation of Shadea, and it is found close to and adjacent to existing habitat of Shadea. We also have information of existing or planned conservation fences in that particular area. And that is a really good question, but thank you.
All right, and thanks for providing that answer, Leisha. At this time, we have reached the end of our 15-minute question and answer session, and we'll now go ahead and move on to our public comment portion of tonight's meeting. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So we're now going to officially start the verbal public hearing portion of today's meeting. to receive comments related to the proposed critical habitat for 12 species and not prudent determination for 2 species. Again, this verbal public comment portion of the meeting, along with your comments, is being recorded as part of the official record. As a reminder, your camera and microphone control settings are restricted during this time. You will only be able to talk if and when you are unmuted, so please remember to speak when prompted. Next slide, please. All right, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would like to hear from all members of the public who are interested in voicing their comments. We'll be using the following guidelines today. First, please be mindful of the length of your comment so that everyone who wishes to speak has an opportunity to do so today. We have 2 pre-registered commenters this evening. Second, please be respectful of others and their viewpoints. Third, please refrain from using profanity. While passion is welcome in your comment, policy requires that we mute anyone who uses inappropriate language because we are recording this meeting and others may be live streaming. So again, please avoid using inappropriate language. If that does occur, we'll provide a reminder before unmuting the person to try again using words acceptable to all ages. All right, I'm now going to read through the instructions for those participants who indicated that they would like to offer a verbal public comment when they pre-registered for today's meeting. We have a list of these participants, and as I said, we have 2 pre-registered. Comments will be accepted in the order that folks registered. Again, if you registered before the start time of today's meeting, you received a separate email informing you that you would be called on to offer your verbal public comment. This email also included your place in the commenter list. We will also display the name of the commenter who is next in line. When you hear your name called out, please use the raise hand feature so that we know you are available and ready to offer your comment. You can access the raise hand feature by clicking on either the reactions icon or the participants list icon, which are both located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Again, if you wave your mouse back and forth across the bottom of your screen, the Zoom toolbar and these icons should appear. You can then select the raise hand feature, located again in the reactions icon or on the participants list. Once you have raised your hand, you will then be unmuted so that you may provide your verbal public comment. You may also be double muted. If that is the case, we will prompt you to unmute yourself on your end so that we can hear you. Before providing your comment, please spell out your first and last name for the record and state if you are representing an organization or group. After you've provided your comment, we will mute you and move on to our next commenter. Again, once we have worked our way through the current list of pre-registered commenters, if we have time, we will move on to those who registered after the start time of today's meeting, who selected that they would like to offer a comment. If we still have time remaining after we have worked our way through those participants, we will open up the verbal public comment portion to anyone who would like to offer a comment today who has not already done so. All right, on the screen now, I have included some graphics showing participants where they can access the raise hand feature on Zoom. We have also included the pre-registered commenters who will be called on next to provide their comment. Please take note if you see your name on the screen. All right, and with that, we are going to go ahead and get started with our first commenter, who is Max Phillips. Max, if you are on the meeting this evening and would like to provide a comment, please go ahead and access that raise hand feature, and then I will then allow you to unmute and provide your comment. All right, and I see you've gone ahead and raised your hand. I'm now going to allow you to unmute yourself on your end. Again, please spell out your first and last name for the record and state if you are representing an organization before providing your comment. All right, and Max, it looks like you are still muted on your end. I'm going to go ahead and prompt you to unmute. So you should be seeing a message popping up in the middle of your Zoom screen that will allow you to unmute yourself.
And one last thing to try, Max, just in case you still do want to provide a comment, we see that you're having microphone issues. If you go to the little mute button and click the arrow, you can select which speaker you want to use, and sometimes that can get mixed around. So just want to point that out in case it's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that helpful reminder, Megan. Max, if you are still having difficulties as well. Oh, I actually see you've already chatted into the chat. So it looks like we'll have a member of our team reach out to you and see if we can't fix that audio malfunction for you before we end the meeting. But at this time, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to our next commenter. And like I said, Max will have someone from our team reach out to you and see if we can't get that audio issue fixed for you. All right, so our next commenter is Zachary Judd. Zachary, if you are on the meeting this evening and would like to provide a comment, please go ahead and access that raise hand feature. All right, and I don't see a Zachary Judd on our meeting participants list, nor do I see any additional raised hands. I'm gonna open up the floor at this time to anyone else who would like to provide a comment this evening. If that's you and maybe in registration you did not indicate that you would like to provide a comment, or you've registered after the start of the meeting time, please go ahead and access that raise hand feature and I will allow you to unmute and provide your comment. Again, at this time, I'd like to open up the floor to anyone else who's joining us this evening who would like to provide a comment. If that is you and you would like to provide a verbal comment today, please go ahead and access that raise hand feature, and I will allow you to unmute and provide your comment. All right, it looks like we do have Rob C. Rob, looks like you've raised your hand. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute yourself. Once you have confirmed audio, please go ahead and spell your first and last name for the record and state if you are representing an organization.
This is Rob Culbertson. I hope you can hear me all right. Can you?
We can, yes, thank you.
Culbertson is C-U-L-B-E-R-T-S-O-N, and I'm representing myself as a forest steward doing my own restoration work, interested in all things endangered. I just want to get back in. I put in the chat, and maybe it wasn't appropriately available for you to take it, but I have a problem with the not prudent designation as it's applied to, and I can't remember the actual species that's been so designated, maybe not prudent, but it's the ʻopāe, one of the ʻopāe, and maybe you can help me with that one, because it's mixed up with the other one that may be more, let's say, sought after, or I think you use the term popular, which is a terrible term to think about people rating the environment for some of these rare species. I think it's a bad idea to refrain from list or creating critical habitat when it overlaps another species that's similarly being, I want to use the word predated in terms of commercial aquarium collectors or anybody else for private collecting purposes, the ʻopāe. So that is my comment. Is that understood? And can you help me with that particular? Let's just make sure we restate which ʻopāe I'm speaking of and help me with that, please. The one that was determined to be not prudent for critical habitat.
Sure, yeah, thanks for that comment, Rob. Unfortunately, at this time, since we're not in a question and answer session, we can't do any back and forth conversation, but we can accept your comment. So I do want to note that that has been recorded for the project record and will be taken into consideration.
Just so long as it's understood, it's consistent with the only named species here that was of the ʻopāe variety of shrimp that is determined to be not prudent at this time. I just don't understand it and don't agree with that. I think it should be declared a critical habitat, and that would have an ancillary benefit for others that are not so, so rare. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thanks for that comment, Rob. Again, everything has been recorded as your comment, so we will take that into consideration for this project. All right, I'm going to go ahead and place you back on mute and lower your hand. All right, again, I do want to open the floor to anyone else who has joined us this evening who would like to provide a comment. If you would like to provide a comment, please go ahead and access that raise hand feature. I will allow you to unmute and then provide your comment. And I do see that we have a new participant for the meeting this evening. So I do want to note just for that participant that we are currently in the verbal public hearing portion of this evening's meeting. If you would like to provide a verbal public comment, please go ahead and access that raise hand feature. I will then allow you to unmute and provide that comment. You can find the raise hand feature under either the reactions tab or the participants list, both of which can be found on the Zoom toolbar. That should be at the bottom of your screen. If it doesn't pop up, you may have to move your mouse around for the toolbar to pop up, but that's where you can find the raise hand feature. If you do have any troubles finding that, you can also chat us through the Zoom chat, again, on the toolbar. All right, so at this time, I do want to loop back to our first commenter, Max Phillips. Max, I see you still have your hand up, so I did want to just double check and see if we were able to get your audio working. Oh, looks like you just lowered your hand. So I'm going to take that as that audio has not started working for you. If that's not the case, please go ahead and raise your hand again, and then we'll call on you to provide that comment. Additionally, we do encourage you to submit any comments in writing, any that you are not able to do verbally this evening. The regulations.gov and the project webpage are available in the chat, and you can route any of your written comments through those avenues. All right, so at this time, I'm not seeing any further hands raised for comments. So I do want to go ahead and review just the final ways that you can submit written comments. I do also want to note that both the service and myself will be here until 8 p.m. Hawaii time through the end of the meeting to accept any further verbal comment that folks may have. I do just want to review this information so that everyone who's currently on the meeting is able to get that. All right, so at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Laisha to go over this last slide. Again, we will all be here until 8 p.m. to accept any further verbal comment that folks may have. Laisha?
Thank you. Thank you again, Ali. And thank you for those who have provided comments thus far. As Ali mentioned, we will remain on the call here on the meeting and accept oral comments until 8 p.m. Hawaii time. In addition, we have a number of other avenues to submit public comments. You may submit public comments by mail with the address listed here on the screen. You may also submit public comments electronically through the regulations.gov website. And there's instructions to enter the docket number there as listed on your screen. And also, please, I'd like to bring your attention to our project page at our Fish and Wildlife Service, Pacific Islands Fish and Wildlife Office. And there you'll find additional information about the proposed rule. You'll find the links again reiterated for you, as well as the methods and ways to submit public comments. And again, I would just like to thank everyone this evening. This does not conclude our meeting, but we will remain on the meeting, on the call, and accept public comments until 8 p.m. Hawaii time. And I will be jumping back on the screen as we conclude our meeting. I'll turn it back over to Ali, and we will stand by for additional public comments until 8 p.m. Hawaii time.
Great, thanks so much, Leisha. Yep, just another reminder that we will be here until 8 p.m. I'll come on screen every 10 minutes or so and just remind folks of that, but we will leave this slide up on the screen as well that has the additional information where you can provide comments. So if you do have any other issues, please feel free to reach out through the chat or raise your hand if you would like to provide a comment. Hey, Rob, I do see that you have your hand raised, and I do see some questions that you've had in the chat as well. I do want to remind you that we are in the comment session, so we are able to accept verbal comments, but we're not able to respond to any verbal questions at this time. I can go ahead and allow you to unmute yourself if you would like to provide a comment during this time. So I'll go ahead and allow you to do so as I see your hand is still raised.
Well, I'm trying to follow up on the screen and copy the information so I can go in, take advantage of the offer to do electronically additional comments. But unless you have this in the original email that I responded to, this is not working for me as far as copying and taking it off screen out of sight here and working with it later. I don't know if it's just my device. I'm on an Apple computer, but I can't seem to get anything to highlight to copy and take and utilize it.
Sure, yeah, I'll provide some clarification. So while there may be links on the screen that are the blue highlighted that look like you can click on them, the links that you can copy or open up in your browser are going to be available in the chat box. So again, that'll be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you click on that chat box, you should be able to click on those links.
All I can do is select all. That's the only, I click on it and I can only select all, right? And then I can't seem to copy it and take it and do anything with it. I don't know where it's going. Typically, sometimes in the chat, you also have an additional ability to save the chat, in which case then you can take stuff offline and work with it. And I don't see that capability. Advise.
Okay. Yeah, let me look into that for you, and I'll provide some clarification on how to either save the chat or to open those links. I do want to note that we do have your contact information through registration. So if there is follow-up needed, we will be doing that so that you do get access to these links in the websites. I want to make sure of that.
That would be fine. Thank you. In any case, I do want to follow up later.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Rob.
Hi, Rob. This is Leisha. If you're still on the meeting, we do have your email, as Ali pointed out. And I also wanted to bring your attention to the project website page. The link is in our Zoom chat, and I believe you should be able to navigate and click there. And there at that project website page, you'll see all of the links listed here on the screen. And I hope that helps. As a follow-up, I will send these links to you that you see on the screen. I will send them directly to your email. Thank you, Rob.
All right, the time is now 7:15 Hawaii time, and I do just want to provide a reminder to everyone on the meeting that we are here and available to accept any further verbal comment that folks may have. If you would like to provide a comment, please go ahead and access the raise hand feature, which can be found under the reactions tab or the participants list available on your Zoom toolbar. All right, folks, the time is now 7:30 p.m. Hawaii time. Again, I just wanted to provide a reminder to anyone who is on the meeting that we are still here and available to accept any further verbal comment that you may have this evening. If you do have a verbal comment, you can go ahead and access the raise hand feature, which is in the participants list or under the reactions tab on your Zoom toolbar. Again, that's going to be found at the bottom of your screen. If you do raise your hand, I will then go ahead and unmute you and allow you to provide your comment. All right, again, the time is 7:45 Hawaii time. I just wanted to provide a reminder to anyone else who is on the meeting with us this evening that if you would like to provide any further verbal comment, we are here until 8 p.m. this evening to accept that comment. If you would like to do so, please go ahead and access the raise hand feature, which again can be found on the Zoom toolbar under the reactions tab or the participants list icon. All right, everyone, we do have about 1 minute remaining in tonight's hearing. So I do just want to thank everyone for your participation, for joining, and for your comments this evening. At this time, I do want to pass it off to Laisha to provide some closing remarks before we officially close out the meeting.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you so much for being a great lead facilitator tonight. And thank you to everyone who submitted your public comments, who attended our meeting. Thank you so much for your time and your energy tonight. Have a good evening.